Center. This is in Calgary, just south of downtown. And you are right now taking a look at BMO Center in Calgary, just south of the downtown core, more precisely in Stampede Park, and more importantly for tonight and the next 2 days, the site of the 2026 Conservative National Convention. As I say convention, let's take a look right now inside the convention center, inside the BMO Center. As you can see, hundreds of delegates now gathered here, about to start off a very important weekend for the Conservative Party. Country music artist Brett Kissel getting things started off for the people here gathered around here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at CPAC. I'm Michael Serapio.
Merci d'être avec nous ce soir.
And this is going to be, as I say, a very important weekend. We're going to hear a number of speeches tonight alone. Marc-André, of course, Pierre Paulus, as well as Stephanie Levitz, Conservative MPs who, through the course of this evening, will serve as MCs for the event. But, you know, beyond the policy debates, beyond the plenary, without a doubt, the centerpiece of what many people are watching for in this room and across the country essentially is that vote on Pierre Poilievre's leadership, whether he has the support of the party.
Tout à fait, Michael. Ce vote sur le leadership de Pierre Poilievre se fait attendre depuis longtemps, en fait depuis le mois de juin, donc 6 semaines après cette défaite électorale cuisante des conservateurs aux mains des libéraux. Rappelons que les libéraux ont remporté l'élection avec 43,8% des voix. Les conservateurs ont quand même fait un score impressionnant, 41,3%. Impressionnant, comme je le mentionnais, leur meilleure performance depuis 1988, alors que Brian Mulroney avait réussi à décrocher un gouvernement majoritaire, mais pas suffisant cette fois-ci. Et donc, comme le veut la constitution du parti, il faudra que M. Poilievre se soumette à un vote sur son leadership. On attend donc quelques 2500 délégués ici à Calgary qui auront l'occasion de se prononcer demain soir sur le leadership de M. Poilievre. Je pense qu'on peut dire que les observateurs s'entendent largement pour dire que M. Poilievre va réussir ce concours sans grande difficulté. Mais la question qui reste vraiment à savoir, c'est avec quelle marge. Et donc, il faudra voir si ce score réussit à mettre enfin fin aux questions qui entourent le leadership de M. Poilievre ou si, au contraire, ça va alimenter les débats davantage.
Yeah, and you're right about that, Marc-André, because it is that margin you are looking for at the end of the day. Because without a doubt, he will have the support of people in this room. How much of the support? Yes, he's built the party, but there are questions about where the party goes forward. And to all of that, CPAC's Andrew Thompson has been talking to some of the delegates gathered here, even before they started to arrive here in Calgary. Let's go to Andrew right now, who is just outside the main room of the convention center, just outside in the hallways. Andrew.
Well, Michael, it's been interesting to talk with some of the delegates coming into this convention to get a sense of how they feel about this vote. You hear about strong support for Pierre Poilievre among the party base. You hear about the shock there would be if he does not survive this vote. And you hear confidence that he can reach the 80% level of support. However, you do hear about a concerted effort to make sure that Pierre Poilievre's support is as high as possible. A big push from inside the party, from the leader's office, lots of calls, lots of lobbying, lots of work as well at the riding level to make sure that the delegates selected for this convention are on the leader's side. One conservative saying that some delegates might still be upset about how last year's election campaign was run. This includes issues with local nominations. So we'll see how all these factors play out in the vote. This kind of leadership review vote is not something that conservatives typically deal with at their convention. It only happens at a convention after an election the party loses and where the leader remains in place. So Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole did not face this vote. The only other time it happened was more than 20 years ago, back at the very first Conservative National Convention in 2005. Stephen Harper got 84% support. By the next year, he was Prime Minister. As for this vote, we won't find out the result until some point after Pierre Poilievre's keynote speech tomorrow night. The party has set aside 2 hours for delegates to vote and will, of course, be closely following the story here in Calgary. Guys, back to you, Marc-André.
I'm very proud to share this song with everybody.
Merci, Andrew. Et pour poursuivre la discussion, je reçois Joël-Denis Bellavance, chef du bureau parlementaire de la Presse à Ottawa. Merci, Joël-Denis, d'être avec nous ce soir.
Merci de l'invitation.
Alors, on sait ce congrès et surtout ce discours tant attendu de M. Poilievre demain soir, ce seront parmi les derniers événements que M. Poilievre et son équipe pourront contrôler. Comment est-ce qu'on doit comprendre l'importance de ce moment pour M. Poilievre?
Je pense que demain soir, il veut convaincre la base qu'il est toujours la meilleure personne pour diriger le parti. Mais ensuite, je pense qu'il va devoir pivoter pour obtenir une deuxième chance, je peux dire, du reste de l'électorat. Et ça ne sera pas un mandat facile, parce qu'on a vu les dernières derniers mois ont été difficiles pour M. Poilievre avec la perte de 2 députés. Et on voit aussi que M. Carney lui a volé plusieurs politiques qui étaient quand même assez importantes pour le Parti conservateur sur la lutte au crime, les taxes sur le carbone, etc. Et dans les sondages, il y a un écart important entre M. Poilievre et M. Carney, à savoir qui ferait le meilleur premier ministre. Donc, il doit entreprendre un mandat encore plus difficile, c'est-à-dire convaincre l'électorat canadien qu'il doit obtenir une deuxième chance. Ça, ici, pour lui, c'est déjà réglé dans mon esprit. C'est lundi matin, il doit s'atteler à cette tâche.
Well, you mentioned the real work begins Monday after this weekend. And I'm going to also bring in Stephanie Levitz from the Globe Mail, who, as you can see, is sitting right beside Joël-Denis as well. And, you know, Stephanie, let me ask you, because you've been covering the Conservatives when it was thought they were going to be the government. Long before Mark Carney, when it was still Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, the belief that what Pierre Poilievre was headed towards was a coronation. It became the coronation that was not. How important is this moment for Pierre Poilievre? You know, Marc-André, Andrew, Joël-Denis, the reference that he brought the party to a height it has not seen before, but it was not enough. Is he enough going forward?
And that's ultimately going to be up to the delegates here, right? Do they want to give him, as JD was saying, do they want to give him a second chance to take down Mr. Carney? And the tension, I think, for Mr. Poilievre in his remarks tomorrow is he has to speak to 2 audiences at the same time, right? He has to speak to the people in this room, and I don't want to lump them all into one basket, but I'll use this. The response that Mr. Carney gave, the response that Mr. Poilievre gave to Mr. Carney's remarks in Davos. There were a lot of people looking at that and saying that we want that statesman-like, we want that tone change, we want that shift. That's not necessarily the base of the party. They want the scrappy guy. They want the fighter. And so there's a real tension point for him there. And I don't know how he hits that sweet spot. But I also think that when you speak to delegates on the floor, the next question is, okay, well, if not Mr. Poilievre, then who? And there's no answer to that for that.
Justement là-dessus, Joël-Denis, le fait que M. Poilievre doit s'adresser à deux publics totalement différents, je sais que vous avez mentionné que lundi, on va peut-être s'attendre à un changement de ton de sa part ou une différente approche, mais quand même, jusqu'à date, on ne l'a pas vu faire ce pivot. Est-ce qu'on doit s'attendre à ce qu'il fasse maintenant?
Il n'a pas fait ce pivot parce qu'il devait convaincre sa base. Il était l'homme de situation et depuis septembre, il a surtout parlé à sa base. Mais à partir de lundi, c'est l'ensemble du public. Et il y a un autre, quand même, défi qui attend M. Poilievre, c'est que la semaine prochaine, il va y avoir un grand gala pour marquer le 20e anniversaire de l'élection de Stephen Harper. Ça va réunir 1200 personnes à Ottawa. Ils ont tous payé un billet pour être là. Et évidemment, on va faire des contrastes entre Stephen Harper et Pierre Poilievre. Stephen Harper a eu les clés du pouvoir de la part d'un électorat qui était d'abord et avant tout hésitant. C'est un peu le même phénomène que guette Pierre Poilievre. Mais a-t-il, l'instinct de Stephen Harper pour aller un peu plus loin, élargir l'attente, additionner? C'est ça qui va être le défi de Pierre Poilievre à partir de lundi.
You know, I'm going to ask a question, and I'll ask it of both of you, and Joël-Denis, si tu veux, tu répondre en anglais ou en français, c'est ton choix. But when you talk about the reference that we have some 2,500 delegates is the estimation that will be here in Calgary. They're the ones that are going to be essentially voting on this. Picking up on your point, Stephanie, there is a difference between the base of the Conservative Party, represented by the delegates here, versus the general Canadian population. And that includes Conservative Canadians that did not make their way to this convention, because they're not voting remotely. They'll be voting here. You have to be physically here to be eligible. How fair of a test is this of Pierre Poilievre's popularity and ability to move the party forward?
You know, it's a great question. To some degree, you could say, well, I mean, if people are here, they're here because they like Pierre. They're here because they want to stake in his future. They want to support him. They want to support the party. It costs a lot of money to come to this, right? It is Calgary. It's the middle of the winter. You have, of course, the competing Ontario Progressive Conservative Convention this weekend. You have, as JD mentioned, this upcoming event to celebrate Stephen Harper. People are holding their money back for that. So I think it's representative also in the sense it's a delegated convention, right? So people were sent here, hopefully, with a mandate from their riding association to go one way or another.
If I can point to the result of a survey this week in which we learned that 25% of the base supporters of the Conservative Party like what Mr. Carney is doing. That represents a challenge for Mr. Poilievre. He's got to speak to the base here, but enlarge even the tent of the Conservative Party by speaking to Conservatives who are happy with what Mark Carney is doing. So, my goodness, the challenges keep piling up for Mr. Poilievre as we speak.
Et là-dessus, Joël-Denis, sûrement, une partie de cette équation-là, c'est le fait que maintenant, Donald Trump, comme d'habitude, s'insère dans l'équation. Parlez-nous du défi que ça pose pour les conservateurs qui, oui, en tant que l'opposition officielle, doit s'opposer au gouvernement sans paraître obstructionniste ou vraiment s'ingérer trop davantage.
C'est un élément important que vous apportez, Donald Trump. C'est Donald Trump qui a influencé le cours de la dernière campagne électorale. C'est encore Donald Trump qui influence le contenu de la campagne de la politique canadienne avec les menaces constantes. Et on sent que Pierre Poilievre, comme chef de l'opposition officielle, n'a pas su pivoter pour s'adapter au contexte qui est le nôtre en ce moment avec des États-Unis qui nous menacent constamment. Encore aujourd'hui, Donald Trump prononce des menaces d'imposer de nouveaux tarifs sur les avions fabriqués par Bombardier. Ça rime à quoi? Le nationalisme canadien augmente et ça fait en sorte que Pierre Poilievre, qui aime bien avoir des relations un peu plus larges, il y a une base qui appuie quand même, apprécie certaines des politiques de Donald Trump, comment la garder satisfaite tout en repoussant ce qui vient des États-Unis. C'est un autre défi. Je parlais des défis qui s'ajoutent pour M. Poilievre. En voilà un autre exemple.
Yeah, and to your point, Abacus Data has been doing this deep dive into the Conservative Party, who the base is, what Canadians support versus what the base of the Conservative Party supports. And when you look at it, well, not I, but when Abacus Data looked at Canadians who are not likely to vote Conservative, 52% still associated Pierre Poilievre with Donald Trump, a version of Donald Trump. How aware, Stephanie, is the Poilievre, the leader of the opposition in the office, of this challenge? Are they doing anything to address that?
I think sometimes they land on what could they do, right? What is the answer to the question, well, you've got to stop being like Trump? Does that mean Mr. Poilievre has to stop being entirely like himself? Does it mean he has to seize on a different issue set? Does it mean that he has to come out swinging against Donald Trump at every single opportunity? Maybe, but I don't know that they've landed on a way to do that. And I think it's a bit bigger than just, the base. There's the part of the base that likes Trump. I think the thing with Mr. Poilievre, and the biggest challenge for him, perhaps, he has been the same guy for 20 years. And he's proud of that. He's proud of, I've always been this way. I have always spoken my mind. I never change my opinions. And I think people like that. They respond to it. He is who he is. And so if you were to change now, then all those people who are like, hey, man, I like that fighter, what about them? And that's not a base thing as much as it is authenticity.
Well, and let me pick up on that point, though, and I'll get you to jump in after, Joël-Denis, because we got a sense of that when we started seeing floor crossings, right? Because when Chris Nonthermont crossed the floor and then Michael Mott crossed the floor, the question was asked of Pierre Poilievre, does your leadership need to change to address those Conservatives who don't have confidence in it anymore? And his answer was clear. He didn't feel that he needed to change anything. Tell us about how that presents perhaps a challenge to build the base.
I mean, I would think one of the things I'm picking up here on the floor, right, is that if people are looking for a change from Mr. Poilievre, it is, like you said, it's a bit of a tonal change, and it's a bit like just meet the moment in your approach. Drop the rhyming, drop the slogans, like a little bit more Davos, and maybe that's the thing that it shakes off the Trump illusion.